Well, hello. I can say hello to you properly now with a smile on my face because we've managed to clear that little glitch. There was definitely a gremlin, probably one of Thomas Sheridan's sort of gremlins lurking around, which clearly didn't want us to do anything. But anyway, we're in. So I am very pleased to welcome Mark Steele. Mark is about to give us a very interesting presentation about the covert asymmetrical 5G war agenda, which I'm looking forward to. Mark, welcome. You made it.
I did, after quite a few of very, very interesting tries there, Brian. For some inexplicable reason, the connection to another machine which had the Skype on went down. Inexplicable. And I've been on it all morning, by the way, so it's been fine. And then it just totally locked up, can't get on the internet. Fortunately, I've got another machine here which we've had to download Skype onto, the same account, to get it back up. So anyway, we're up. So they didn't catch us out that time.
Okay. All right. Well, not to worry. You're here. That's the important thing. Now, I'm going to hit you with a very difficult question. And that is a viewer has asked, what type of sunglasses would you recommend for day or night?
Anything that has a plastic lens, they protect from the non-ionizing radiation, but the mirror-coated lenses are the best. The iridium coat, you can buy them in any shop. There's nothing special about them. They're just basically mirror sunglasses. And that helps to reflect the radiation. And you also have the benefit of potentially getting a cancellation wave back to the radiation that's coming in. Okay, because as it hits the mirror, you get a cancellation wave and it plays absolute havoc with facial recognition systems, which are biologically toxic. We hear a lot of stories about, people being worried about their privacy, which is a serious concern. However, I'd be more concerned about the cancer and the central nervous system cancer, that facial recognition. It is, after all, just urban radar scanning technology, and it's toxic.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. That should be one satisfied customer today. Thank you. Well, Mark, as we kick off, I was trying to think of when it was the last time I met you at an AV event. It was a long time ago, which tells me you have been a very strong campaigner for a very long time. And you're another person that was brought into the fold by Ian Crane. So I just wanted to say a little bit of a poignant conversation. How did Ian Crane change your life?
Ian did a great job in actually helping us to, expose the 5G network that Gateshead Council had fitted illegally and covertly, and even in denial today, even though we showed that in the court case that they had, as a matter of fact, installed an illegal urban radar technology that could acquire targets in the near environment on the streetlights, which at the time was pretty unbelievable. Unfortunately, that was, as a matter of fact, what happened, and Ian helped greatly in, getting into court, preparing the papers. He was quite sharp. He was me Mackenzie in that historic court case where the judge, Recorder Nolan, stated the 5G risk must be debated. This is a democracy and the public have a right to know. We've never had any right to know about these battlefield-derived technologies that are coming on my streets and my street furniture. There was a lot of people trying to cover that up, Gateshead Council in particular, and obviously Brigade 77 and their minions, and a lot of people who were very ignorant about this particular type of technology, who just thought it was impossible to believe that the government were trying to kill people.
Yeah. Well, that is a particular subject which we've been discussing with previous speakers, the concept that we're being attacked by our own government, which I certainly believe is the truth. Well, we're just on 15:45, so I'm going to say, Mark, take us away with your presentation. It looks very interesting what I can see on screen, but go for it, and I will see you the other end.
All right, excellent. Well, I hope everybody's dispel all of that cognitive dissonance with this one. You have to have an open mind. When I came across this equipment in street furniture, and I've got 30 years experience in this field. I couldn't believe it. I'm not expecting anybody to watch a presentation for close to an hour so that's the reason why you have to do your own research. I just paint a picture, I just give you a message. It's up to you to do your own research. Ian was always a proponent of people doing their own research. It's extremely important, especially something as critical and as dangerous as what we're facing today. So Build Back Better, you've all heard the name. It goes right across all of the different political groups, Liberal, Democrats, Labour, Conservative, Joe Biden. You know, it doesn't matter who you talk to, they're all talking about this Build Back Better coming from the script that comes from the World Economic Forum. This is all about central control. So they have a political ideological unification from left to right to take over all governance. Now that picks out the worst in, you know, Nazism, fascism, and communism. So it's a total takedown of democracy, freedom, rule of law, etc., where you will be at the will, the beck and will of these, what tended to be pharaohs, slave masters, Satanists, whatever you want to call them, whatever cult it is that they're party to. We know they're part of a cult, and that's why we can identify them by their signs and symbols, simple as Build Back Better. It's basically 666. All right, the B's are synonymous with sixes. All right, the governance and electrifying digital agenda, how they're going to control you so that they can actually cause this mass murder. So it's a unification of the global elites, right, where there's no more war. Now it sounds fantastic, no more war. So, but what is their intention to do with our military capability if there's not going to be any more of these global wars where people are going to be fighting against each other? Unfortunately, what we see in Ukraine, Putin has thrown a bit of a curveball at them at the moment. We need to understand how this will affect your business, your life. We see that now. Ridiculously large energy bills where, you know, oil and gas in 2008 was trading at $140 a barrel. It's now trading at 93. From 2010 to 2014, it was trading at averaging around about $120 a barrel. And now it's trading at 93. And they're saying there's an emergency. The cost is through the roof, which it is, but it's all falsified and it's all part of taking down private business. I mean, you've got all the private businesses talking about that. It's an AI automation, UN smart cities, UN zero carbon agenda by 2030. Now, if we look at the actors behind this, World Economic Forum, their goals and plan and strategy. Now, they talk about 5G technology. What the World Economic Forum stated clearly, there's no 6G. Now, I hear the 6G narrative. It's the businesses trying to gaslight people. 5G has a satanic symbology to it. It's the pentagram. Penta for 5, G for gram. It's all part of this cult type narrative coming out of the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum, you see that little swoosh going through the zeros. Well, that's to signify a 6. So even that, you know, it directly goes through those circles on the World Economic Forum logo, right? Fourth Industrial Revolution, it's basically the Fourth Reich. That's what they're telling you. And obviously, the plan is the final solution.
To ask, how do we build back better?
To build back better or whatever.
We have a chance to reset the clock and build back better than before.
To build back better than before.
Remember the terrible damage of COVID as we try to build back from this global pandemic.
Joe Biden calls it Build Back Better.
Build back better.
Building back better.
To do things differently. To build back better.
We're going to build it back better.
And build it back better.
My plan to build back better.
Start taking all the problems that have been created in education and mental health and start to build back in a positive way.
I have launched a booklet called Build Back Better, Britain After Coronavirus.
It's about building this country back better. Growing conspiracy following it. It is called the Great Reset.
An unprecedented opportunity to rethink and reset the ways in which we live.
The great opportunity for reset.
The theory even calls Mr. Biden's campaign slogan, Build Back Better, a front for the conspiracy.
Build back better.
Building back better our economy.
Build back better.
All elements of the Great Reset are fundamental to building the future we need. This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset.
It's a big effort to, some would say, to build back better. We would say to really have a great reset.
What we are very proud of now, the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina and so on, that we penetrate the cabinets. So yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet, or even more, half of this cabinet are for our actually young global leaders of the world. The difference of this fourth industrial revolution is it doesn't change what you are doing. It changes you. If you take genetic editing, just as an example, it's you who are changed. And of course, this has a big impact on your identity.
That kind of gene editing, some people worry that you are changing what it means to be human.
That's the problem. And of course, the new industrial revolution offers us many opportunities, but it raises manifold questions on the ethical, but even legal implications. And we have to be prepared for it. And that's what we want to do in Davos next year.
Well, as everybody can see there, I don't think that you actually watched the full video, but we got the tail end of it. And what he's really talking about is depopulation and death. The gene editing aspect of the COVID-19 vaccine is basically to take away your legal representation in law as a man or woman. So you've got no legal rights. You become a technology, and a technology player that they can assassinate at will if they so please. And they even talk about that, and we'll come on to it later on. Now, this is real, all right? So we've got to understand this is a real issue that we'll have to address. We've got the UK research funding, Build Back Better. You see it in all of the, Build Back Better, UK Research Innovation. It's actually Durham Local Council, Build Back Better. So the British government, Build Back Better. So they're already party to this. And what they're trying to achieve is to fund local authorities to the tune of 53.9 billion to drive growth. Now, who in a local council would be able, they can't even run a business like where they tax people and don't really do a great deal for it. They can't even make profit out of that. So how would a local authority getting 53 billion of taxpayers' money either develop any innovation? I mean, we saw it with the power station plans that they had where they were doing their own power supply to consumers, went bankrupt. These characters in these local authorities are not businessmen. Consequently, they're going to throw 53 billion at them. And what they're going to do, they're going to create unsustainable carbon taxes for actual private business and basically bankrupting them as they go. Because the whole CO2 thing, 0.04 in air, it's a trace gas, has absolutely very little to do with the environment, and consequently, it's not true. So we look at the defence industry. Now, obviously, this came out early on, 2017. The current budget, current military budget in 2017 was 56 billion. Their plan until the war in Ukraine was to move that 56 billion and pass it to the local authorities, etc., to basically waste it. The Defence Intelligence Group, Deagle, shows by 2025 here, we've got a population of less than 15 million in the UK. So for some inexplicable reason, there's going to be a sharp decline in the population. We've already seen the cull. We're already seeing in excess case mortality over a 5-year period, 1,700 per week. That's just the tip of the iceberg as they shut off your gas and your electric, as their plan is. And going forward, it's going to get a lot worse because this is an asymmetrical, unconventional war that they have declared on us on behalf of the World Economic Forum. Obviously, the defense industry, if you look at smart technologies, it's all smart. Secret militarized armaments and residential technology, most stuff funded by, military and defense contract companies. So you can thank them for your smart devices. However, a lot of this smart technology has other nefarious, let's say, a purpose. And that's what we'll come on to. Electrification. Now, from a security perspective, who would want to have all their eggs in one basket? It doesn't make any security sense. There's nobody in the industry would want to have everything electrified. And the reason for that is because if the electric goes down, if your smart meter switches it off or you lose some power station, the next minute, everything's reliant on your transport, your communications, your heating, your financials. Boris Johnson's already stated they want to get rid of all of your gas boilers. They want you totally on electric. And obviously, as we can see, charging electric cars now has become a very, very expensive business. Far more expensive than actually putting petrol in your vehicle. So anybody that's pushing this all eggs in one basket are totally, leaving the country open to it as a major security risk. Very poor intelligence, and they're gaslighting the population in relation to that. I mean, Taiwan there, as you see in the bottom right-hand corner, were hit by widespread power outages. How do you get to work if you have an electric train network, an electric vehicle network? If the power goes down, you're stuck. If all your cookers are electric, if everything in your house is electric, and that's what these characters are trying to push. Now, if you look at this image on the left-hand side, a very interesting image, and I would be pretty concerned being an investor in wind turbines due to the fatigue mechanics of that particular image. So that, no doubt, that weld there will have passed. It'll be what's called bombed. So you do it actually is radiographed to make sure there's no, there's no material issues in that weld. However, that one's fractured, and that could potentially be modulated frequencies from the mast. So that's not a very good sign at all, and is a significant issue going forward. How long are these monolithic structures going to last? Obviously, smart meters. We know this is all about control. So once they get everybody electrified, you've then got smart meters which can be switched off remotely. The network can be hacked. They can blame someone else, but also the usage, they can actually change your bill on the fly. And if they don't like what you're posting on the internet, they can actually switch your electric off. Now, how dangerous are smart meters? We've heard all this, you get told by government they're perfectly safe, etc., etc. But here we have evidence of the interference of the early warning nuclear warning system in Yorkshire, right? That's from the smart meters in the local towns. Now, if you live down that part area, Scarborough and Whitby, you know that the intelligence gathering is at Filentales and it's higher up on the hillside and nowhere near. Now, if these early warning systems are being affected, it shows how dangerous these smart meters and how much radiation emission is actually being emitted into the environment. Obviously, electrifying autonomous vehicle ownership, low emissions agenda. So they talk about low emissions. Low emissions are what? Carbon dioxide, CO2 is a green gas. We are being gaslighted. It's the exact opposite to what we're being told. So the low emissions is CO2. Plants need CO2 to produce oxygen. They also need CO2, and that's why you can purchase CO2 generators to put into your greenhouse to make sure that your plants grow a little bit more, strongly, and you get a better crop. So CO2 is really important, and we've got government ministers, local councils, etc., spending fortunes on low CO2 emissions. And also, we've got the environmental impacts of 20-mile-an-hour zones, which basically don't cause any good at all, be a serious problem. And when you've got top police officers actually making statements that smart meters are really dangerous, and they still carry on. Now, I have heard the latest, this Liz Truss, another World Economic Forum puppet, as they all are, otherwise they wouldn't be in the cabinet, they wouldn't be in position. She's talking about, doing something about this, but let's just wait and see if that actually happens. Now, 20-mile-an-hour zones. Everybody's driven up the M1, the M6, and you'll see these stop-start, no accidents. What they're doing, it's part of the psychological training, like Pavlov's dog. Do as you're told, 20 mile, 40 mile an hour. I've been on motorways on numerous occasions when there's nothing at all problematic on the road, but they're still changing these. And all it is, it's conditioning you to do as you're told. And now we've got the icing on the cake. Your transport minister wants to end a culture of car ownership. Well, they're either going to tax you out of it, they're going to make you sit in an electric car, and electric vehicles, the maximum exposure to magnetic flux fields, no more than 30 minutes. That wouldn't be safe. That'll increase your leukemia potential to develop leukemia and other types of cancers. However, nobody talks about the dangers posed to consumers from magnetic fields. And they're all well known about. Seems that mainstream media just don't want to even touch on it. We've got a fiscal policy driving this electrical technology. So currently they're being subsidized, right? If you look at this top picture on the left here, you'll see these LiDAR systems on the top of the vehicles. Now, LiDAR is quite an interesting battlefield interrogation technology. What I can tell you, I wouldn't want to have one of these vehicles behind me, because most of these autonomous vehicles require at least 4 to 8 LiDAR systems. This is toxic radiation, all right? You've got a laser radar cross. They're operating the non-visible spectrum, extremely dangerous. If I was to shine a laser at you, I'd be arrested for the Laser Misuse Act, especially firing it at a vehicle. However, these characters are testing these type of lasers on roads, etc. And we've had no risk assessment of the magnetic fields of driving these. And also, when these vehicles burst into flames, we'll see if we can get this one to work this time. No, it didn't. That was a second. The wrong way. That was a second. I'll just try and get this to ensure you how problematic these. No, it's not going to have it. I'll tell you what. Is anybody going to try that one? Let's go back to that. Yeah. This technology is amazing, isn't it? Anyway. The bottom left-hand corner shows a fire. Now that's a nice little bit of fire there. Now, what we have to remember, there's been no environmental risk analysis in relation to this technology. That's cobalt lithium runoff. That's as bad as a dirty bomb in a cityscape. So you've got no environmental risk analysis, there's been no hazmat, and this technology has been allowed to be installed, and we've got lots of information now where we're sure that the lots of the vehicles, you can't park them in your garage now, you can't park them in Singapore multi-story, due to the fact that if not only do they set fire to themselves, they are a risk to other vehicles in the area, and the fact that you can't put them out with a normal, water, etc., where they just reignite themselves, it's a serious problem and hasn't been thought out. And the reason it hasn't been thought out, because there's another purpose to them. It's about control. The more people that get electric vehicles, the more you can control people. Now, obviously, my sort of background, directional weapon systems, the 5G risk, as the recorder Nolan stated, had to be debated. We have 5G taxpayer-funded networks, 400,000 of these very high power, this one on the right-hand side, very high power transmitters, some 100,000 times more powerful than a 4G mast. But the fact that they can fire a beam, a very powerful beam, as you see in this structure in the middle picture, 400,000 extra of these. This is Glasgow city centre. The radiation impact we see in that picture would be catastrophic and lethal to anybody exposed to it. All right, the levels of radiation there from those masks would kill anybody that's in that area. And this was an analysis done by MATLAB on 5G transmitters in the Glasgow area. And I can tell you now, those beamforming waves, as you can see them in the red, are in this area here. They're just totally catastrophic and kill all biological life in Glasgow. That is a kill grid. That's the plan for 5G. The equipment similar to this on the right-hand side, extremely dangerous. Now, your government and Public Health England, who are now UK Health Security Agency, they have stated that the 5G risk, they don't expect to see any increase in radiation. This is totally false. We're being lied to on an industrial scale, same as the safe and effective COVID-19 vaccine. The technical parameter for 5G, if you look at this left-hand side image, 4G radiates in all directions. It's called inverse square law. The total difference is the antenna design, these pans here, that cause focality in air, polarization, and a collimated signal, powerful signal, at your target. So you see this image on the left, where they're focusing what's called a machine-to-machine signal, compressed, very high-powered microwave radiation beam at an autonomous vehicle, because that's what that proposal is, and one of the reasons for 5G autonomous vehicles. What I can tell you, if you were or got in the line of sight of these straight beams, your life is at major risk. So anybody getting in between that, then that's when you'd be at risk. And that's the reason why there isn't any actual 5G devices. So the 5G phones that you're buying have basically got a 5G sticker on, but if they don't cause collimation and a coherent signal to your transmitter to send a signal and backhaul, but also to receive a collimated signal, they're not 5G. This is the technical parameter for 5G. Obviously, smart cities, densification. So we've got a massive multiplication. So one of the problems with all of this type of equipment, it fits with what they call ICNIRP guidelines. Now, the ICNIRP guidelines were set up many, many years ago, and basically to protect people for short periods of time for large amounts of radiation. They're time sensitive, 6 minutes, 30 minutes, no more than that. These transmitters on 24 hours, and we'll always be told by government agencies and others that the fit with ICNIRP guidelines, well, that's a lie. It's It's a demonstrable lie because ICNIRP's time sensitive and all these transmitters are on 24/7. So see massive densification of these smart devices, like I said before, secret militarized armaments and residential technology. This is a 4G LTE, which basically is 5G light, all right, because these are focus and beam type transmitters. 4G LTE was 5G, they just called it something else. It's a precursor to the full 5G network. But then when you look at the actual radiation pattern for a 5G network, you'll see how catastrophic that is, okay? And the levels of radiation, as we are measuring in Swindon, London, and other parts of the country, they are catastrophic to life, okay? Well above the ICNIRP guidelines, all right? One ICNIRP's 1 milliwatts, it's only for 6 minutes. These are 6, as you can see here, in and around the 6, and they're on 24 hours a day. They will kill you, okay? There's also the fact that electromagnetic radiation causes a temperature increase because it's modulated, it's pulse modulated, it's how a microwave oven works. It's the vibration of the electron spin that causes temperature. So where these magnetic radiation emissions enter the cityscape, they then adds to a vibration in molecular structures, whether it be buildings, concrete, brickwork, etc., and that then exhibits as a temperature increase and can be measured as a temperature increase. There's also the fire risk. You've got the operating systems and the virus risk, because obviously we know that electromagnetic radiation has been and is well known to cause flu, pneumonia type symptoms. When I first spoke about this, a lot of people thought it must be incorrect that the COVID-19 symptoms are interconnected with the deployment of 5G. The government and the BBC made a great lot of noise about the fact that that was a conspiracy theorist. But however, that's a total and absolute lie. The fact is, electromagnetic radiation causes all of the COVID-19 symptoms. The other unintended consequences from modulated frequencies is fatigue. Obviously, my background in material sciences and fatigue mechanics and fracture mechanics. So I understand about modulated frequencies and how they can precipitate and cause the fracturing of materials. It's what I used to do. I used to break things for a living when I was a young engineer. So we knew at certain frequencies, the same as what you see, you see, everybody's seen the bridge collapse at a certain modulated frequency. We've all seen the wine glass break at a certain sound frequency. Heavy materials all have covalent bonds that can be affected by modulated energy frequencies. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. So we see fractures in bond walls. If you knew the science that goes behind building these reactor retainer walls, I can tell you now, they don't fracture. It's impossible for them to fracture. There has to be some other factor that hasn't been taken in consideration. And we also found this large structure in Italy that basically just fell in the streets. Now, if you knew anything about civil engineering, you'll see all of this stuff is over spec. Now, I'm not saying, there could be some corruption. The concrete could have been, badly produced, etc. It can happen. However, modulated frequencies, right, no matter how much corruption there was in a cityscape like that, where you've got vast amounts of radiation emission, it would have an effect. Even if this was corrupt and lots of people died from its collapse, there's still an effect from electromagnetic radiation modulated, because that energy has to go somewhere and has to be dissipated somewhere. And some of the effects, some of the dielectric effects from modulated frequencies haven't been taken into any sort of consideration at all. So when all of this equipment was actually built and constructed, nobody taken into consideration the billions of transmitters, smart meters, etc. Same as the issue that the radar system has in filing deals from the smart meter. Nobody took into consideration the fatigue characteristics of these structures when they were built in relation to energy, modulated frequency energy fields. The reality of smart cities. This was the 5G switch on in South Korea. as you see, one of the smoke and gun images here was this cable drum. You can see from the cable drum, the copper cable acts as a dielectric, so you get an energy buildup. Now, the timber, which should be the first to burn, not a sheathed cable, right? That definitely wouldn't burn first. You can see that the cable is actually fully on fire, where the cable, the drum itself, the wooden drum, is not on fire. That in itself is a smoking gun. And we also know that there was transformer in the electrical grid that actually set fire to these 5 separate cities. Now, the narrative was, the BBC narrative was, there were forest fires. But how do you get forest fires in all these different cityscapes on the right-hand side in this part of this province in South Korea when they actually switched on 5G? Okay, so there's definitely a link there. You'd have to be pretty dim not to get it. And we'll also see some of these buildings, very much like what we saw in Paradise, are basically vaporizing these buildings. And I've got no doubt, similar to Paradise, smart meters, yes. When we first saw the Paradise images, a lot of stuff on the internet about, direct energy weapons. I can tell you now that wasn't the case. They were using direct energy weapons, but the fact that you could see them told me it was a cover for the real issue, due to the fact that most direct energy weapons operate in the non-visible spectrum. The fact that somebody had actually taken images of these direct energy weapons being used in California told me it was just a cover, because it would be like using a tracer bullet when they shot JFK. It just doesn't add up. We all saw this in the mainstream. Pilots terrified from the 5G network switch on in America. The director for Emirates stated it was utterly irresponsible. His pilots were terrified as they came into land, and this shows a total reckless, a reckless plan to fit this equipment without any real safety testing. So there hasn't been any real safety testing in relation to 5G, and the reason for that is because it would fail. Now, a lot of people watching this will have seen this before. This is what the case that Ian helped me with, where the judge said that the 5G risk must be debated. Biggest mistake ever. Gated Council taking me to court where they said I was a conspiracy theorist, and I was frightening people by telling them that that this equipment would kill them, which it will, and it is killing them. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the cull now. We're seeing a massive increase of all-cause mortality, cancers, heart attacks, strokes, because this stuff's pretty toxic and it's accumulative over time. The judge said the risk must be debated. We've never had a debate. They can't have a debate because they know that debate they're going to lose, and that's why your government agencies just lie. Gated Council basically put this this fabricated press release out. They said there was no risk to the technology, which was a total falsehood. We know that as a matter of fact. And what they'd actually said was they'd spoken to the World Health Organization and Public Health England. No, they hadn't. And if they had have done, the WHO had already identified this type of radiation as a carcinogen, a potential carcinogen. And Public Health England had already made a statement that the LED streetlights were toxic and could cause retinal cell death. So they hadn't talked to PHE. This was a total fabrication that they also used in the court. And this is where we see councils. Sunderland Council paid £35 million in 2016 to gag former employees. I mean, this is, so that's where your 65 million is going to go, just gagging anybody that wants to speak out. And that's what they try to do me with, try to gag us from speaking out. They obviously do it a lot with our own employees, and they think they can just basically gag anybody who doesn't go along with their false, deceptive narrative. These are the lights, the council, zero carbon, 5G, LED, urban radar energy. Now, obviously, they're told a long life, which they are. They absolutely are low maintenance, but what they most certainly are, they're an optical radiation hazard. All artificial light is a hazard. That's why all lights have to have a diffuser, the old high pressure sodium, which ran at about 2.2 Kelvin. These are anything about 6.5 to 7 Kelvin. So you've got a massive increase in the radiation, light spill, the hazard of glare. They're not uninsurable for harm, but the most dangerous thing, these are risk group 2 LEDs. It states it there, risk group 2, okay? All the regulatory bodies, so the American Medical Association, this is the French regulator, ANSIS, you had SHARE, the Emerging Risk Group, Public Health England, and the Health HSE all know the dangers of optical radiation, but especially in this risk group 2 group. And this, like I said, these LEDs have got no diffuser, all part of the 5G deployment. Now, the standard for these type LEDs, the risk group 2 group, right, where local councils should have lighting experts, the maximum I can expose you to the type of blue light radiance in a group 2, states it quite clearly there, 0.25 a second. 0.25 of a second. Just let that sink in for a minute. It actually affects your skin, it damages your eyes, and your local council have fitted this under a UN Resilient Cities agenda to save carbon dioxide, a green gas, and they want to harm you. So you see, when I actually first looked at these lights without the diffuser, I realized that the way they'd been designed, it was to cause bodily harm. Now, anything that's designed to cause bodily harm is most certainly a weapon. The weapon comes in many shapes and sizes. So you see, Public Health England had warned, now this highways document here, this actually goes to all councils. So they cannot deny that they didn't get it. All right, so Professor John O'Hagan had actually written to all local authorities. This was prior to Gateshead Council taking me to court to try and gag me. So they should have known and cannot plead ignorance. Because you know how they try and do that all the time. They're uninsurable for harm. They're also in breach of the Social Care Act 2012, where local authorities, your directors for public health, who are now overseeing the largest increase in all-cause mortality deaths, but are running for the hills and ignoring it, have a duty to protect you from ionizing and non-ionizing radiation, as it states in the Act here. They have a duty. Now, they're not doing that duty due to the fact allowing this type of LED, these blue phosphor-coated, round about the 450 nanometers frequency, they're uninsurable for harm, and they are environmentally toxic. We've got this study that came, Exeter University. Now, this was a Spanish study. 40 very, very well-respected institutions showed a doubling of breast and prostate cancer only after a small number of years of these lights being installed in Barcelona. This is what your council's fitting without any environmental impact analysis. And the reason it didn't carry out a health impact analysis, human rights impact analysis, safety impact analysis, risk analysis, all the things they're obliged to in law, was because this type of lighting would have failed. And the reason it didn't carry it out, and also the reason why they tried to gag me. Obviously, there's lots of radiation hazards from these type of emitters, these 450 nanometers. They kill all insects. That's why we see a massive depopulation of butterflies, bees, wasps, you name it. A lot of these lights on through the day. You only have to travel up the M1. You'll see lots of these lights. And there's a massive ecocide going on. Because if you kill all the insects and the bees, then obviously you're not going to be agribusinesses and your food production is going to fail. Also the birds, we've seen a massive depopulation of birds, fish trying to travel up the rivers, can't get insects to eat, so they die on the way up there, or they starve, and obviously just killing off all the pollinators. So this is all part of reckless deployment of lighting that is extremely biologically toxic and environmentally toxic. Obviously on the back of this so-called global warming, So we've got equipment, we've got weather weapons deployments across the world. These ionospheric heaters, basically HARP and similar technology. This thing on the left-hand side, that there at the top of the stairs is a man. Yeah, so that very small figure there at the top of this gantry is actually a chap. So this just puts this into perspective, the size of these type of weather weapons, because by 2025, they will be able to control. They're not doing a very good job, or are they doing a good job? And that's why we're getting these inexplicable, very warm, hot, uncomfortable days around the country, all to gaslight us about the reduction of CO2, because that's what drives many of the smart grid, the LEDs, all the toxic things in the environment. It is the CO2 narrative that's driving them at your local authority and by your central government. Now, obviously, there was a lot of water lying about, and obviously that was all part of this climate emergency nonsense. But what we really found was the Environmental Agency boss, they just hadn't been dredging the rivers. They hadn't been dredging the rivers or the dike backs, and that's why we had this. When it rained a lot, the water couldn't really get away. Consequently, it flooded a lot of the land. That was just part of the gaslighting. The farmers' resistance actually got them to start to clear it up. And you can see over the last couple of years, we haven't had that much bother. The bottom picture, quite an interesting one. You can see where turbines offshore pick up water vapour. Well, that water vapour, unfortunately, has to go somewhere. And also the cabling from and to these monopoles causes a problem with fish stocks, because fish are very, very sensitive to electromagnetic radiation for obvious reasons. They use it to geolocate themselves, very much like birds. So consequently, there's an environmental impact that nobody, once again, basically out for lunch, environmental groups who don't want to talk or anybody to mention the effects of this technology, because they believe it's got something to do with helping the climate changing in relation to CO2, which it absolutely hasn't. If anything, it's the exact opposite. We'll find this with a lot of their narrative. And obviously, this one, 13.5 electron volts, you can cause ionization. All right, so radiation causes flu-type symptoms. We spoke about that before. And the nanometer materials. Now, what I want to do is try and play this. So I'll double-click it and just see if we can get it to go. No, I'll tell you what, I'll let the lads to try it if they can click that for me. Let's see what happens here. I'll get it to play. There you go. Yeah.
Andrew Huff is a spokesman for the Armed Forces Radiobiology Research Institute, which has been leading the Pentagon's quest for a more effective antidote to radiation sickness.
The symptoms of acute radiation sickness would be just exactly like a terrible flu. A person would have a headache. They would feel very tired. They would have a little bit of a fever. They might have some vomiting at higher doses. All of this would be more severe, and it would come on more rapidly.
We downloaded the sequences from the Chinese government. We put it into our proprietary algorithm that generates the vaccines, and in 2 hours we had the vaccine already designed, and it went straight into manufacture.
The magnet, this is the arm I got. The thighs are shot in. And there it is.
Come closer.
Stick into my arm. That's where I got the shot. And here's the magnet on the arm I didn't get the shot. You go figure it out. We're chipped.
Wireless service providers operating point-to-multipoint in the 5 GHz license-exempt band find it hard to deliver reliable broadband services for residential customers or guaranteed SLA for enterprises due to the adverse effect of signal interference from third-party systems. Beamforming solution is formed from an array of antenna elements that are combined to generate a narrow and steerable beam for increased system gain, ultimately boosting capacity and range. Interference.
Well, there you've just seen a couple of issues. Obviously, AstraZeneca, they got the technology directly from the Chinese Communist Party, the BSL-4 weapons lab in Wuhan. Now, I wonder, if we ask the question, what do BSL-4 weapons labs make? Well, I can tell you, they make biological chemical weapons. So that's what was actually in the AstraZeneca. Now, they killed an awful lot of people in the first few months due to the fact that the toxins and these nanomaterial antennas. We have a number of people going out around the country. We'll call them the magneteers. Anybody wants to get involved with that, because this is really important. Once we get enough people where, instead of them being the self-righteous, I did as I was told and I've done the right thing to protect everybody, and realize that they're a victim of a technological play where I can actually target acquire them. As you can see in this image here, this is a target acquisition system. And if you've had that antenna injected into you, they can target acquire you and cause what's called an atonic seizure. I can attack your vagus nerve and cause a tonic seizure. I can basically do what was shown in the images, the first images that came out of Wuhan. I had a lot of people send them to me. A lot of the video footage and that, people asking questions, what's going on, Mark? And I went to shoot them with direct energy weapons. I then knew, because I knew the Chinese had been vaccinated from the same technology that came out of that lab in Wuhan in the November 2019 for this 5G link-up test. So once you've had that COVID-19 vaccine, it is absolutely imperative that you keep as far away from 5G networks, as well as orchestrating to get the antenna removed. Now, we're all getting the antennas removed. There is a protocol to fix it. So it's really important, because make no mistake about it, from the information we have, they're planning this mass murder. Now, these nickel nanodot arrays, that, you know, they've been working on this stuff in the military for many, many years. There was a project to track wetware on the battlefield. What you don't want is to have troops on the battlefield where they possibly, you know, your enemy are going to recover them. So you've got to understand, is he alive? Is he dead? You can do that by injecting them with these type of antennas, so you can measure the biometrics. The biometric network is already in place. It is the telemetric sub-gigahertz 5G network. They're already using it. You can get it on your, you know, your smartphone, so they can monitor your biometrics. We all know about the story about the lady in Greece whose husband murdered her. He was a helicopter pilot, and basically made a cock and bull story up about how, you know, he'd fell out with her. Anyway, the police decided they didn't expect, you know, they didn't trust his word. Something suspicious about it. However, unfortunately for him, she had a smartwatch on, and they knew when he strangled her, she was actually still asleep. They could tell by her biometrics. That network is in place now. Those nanomaterial antennas, which we are identifying, use these neodymium magnets to check for the appearance of magnetic fields at the injection site. We're identifying them in these vaccines. So basically, people are becoming a 5G electrical device. They're patented to whoever made the vaccine. It's all in the in the legal documents. Now, obviously, the test province for this was Wuhan. We saw the switch on in Wuhan, and what we also saw was radiation-induced coagulopathy. So the increase in radiation from the nanomaterials, it increases the radiation toxicity. So that shows you that, you know, the fibrosis of the lung, in the autopsies in Italy where they saw pulmonary thrombosis, all linked with radiation, but also the metal contaminations. A lot of the earlier injections, the flu jabs, flu jabs had nanometer materials in. Tungsten was one of the main constituent parts. It's consequently the first kill, and I'm pretty sure they expected a lot more deaths than what actually happened. And then coming on to the COVID-19 vaccine, this was Pfizer's own documents. I've got no doubt that most people watching this have probably read these. They're absolutely horrific. You know, where we see a tonic seizure here. We'll also see autoimmune blistering. This is your monkeypox appearing, and we'll see autoimmune. So basically, vaccine-induced AIDS, and that's what's coming. Okay, this has been confirmed by the manufacturers, right? And also, your UK Health Security Agency has shown that antibody levels appear to be lower in infections from people who've had, you know, doses of this type of vaccine. Well, that would be pretty obvious. That's the whole purpose, to take down your immune system so that you're more susceptible to the 5G radiation emission, which it makes it even worse.
Can't hear him.
Brian, tell him he's back.
You're back. You're back, Mark.
Something wrong with the audio.
But we can't hear your audio yet.
All right.
Now we can. You're there.
Yeah, you can hear me. Yep. Obviously, this is, you know, 5G warfare. I can't exactly see this screen. If I can see it a bit bigger, that would be helpful. That was a second. Not really seeing that. Second. Yeah, got it. That's a lot. Right. So yeah, we'll have obviously 5th generation warfare. Now, the organization, it's 360 ISR Global Military Intelligence Group, and they confirm that the whole 5th generation technology is going to be used to identify a new type of adversary. Now, obviously, their whole plan, which, like I said before, has been basically thrown into disarray due to the war in Ukraine, was to have this one world government, one military organization that wasn't going to be warring with larger countries, but there was going to be this unity so that they could then focus their attention. And it actually states in these intelligence documents that their attention is going to be focused at basically domestic, people, so civilians. So they're basically going to turn that military might against civilians. We've got Klaus Schwab, who's basically at the center of all this, and obviously the Club of Rome. This is all about depopulation, the getting rid of the useless eaters. They're planning to kill billions, by the way, not a few million. If you look at the intelligence documents, they're talking about wanting to kill billions. In fact, Klaus Schwab has actually stated if he doesn't get every single human on the planet vaccinated, their lifestyle, not yours, their lifestyle may come to an end. Well, we're going to make sure the more people that find out about what their real plan is, it will come to an end. So if we can just play this video on the right-hand side with a lawyer who I know in America, Todd Callender. We'll just play this video.
I want to hear this correctly.
Yes. Okay. We know from the DMED database, the military's database, which we're looking at because that's our plaintiff class, that in 10 months of 2021, so not even the complete year, all causes, morbidity and mortality had increased, according to the military's own numbers, by 1,100%, 1,100% over 2020.
Among who? What was the population?
Between 18 and 40 was the DMED population, if memory serves.
In the
military members.
Military
members.
I'm telling you.
Yes, that's what I'm telling you. That is the database that we're operating on.
1,100%?
Yes, that's right. And if you look at the way that the charts go, and don't forget I'm in the morbidity business. We underwrite accident, sickness, health, and disability insurance. If you look at the forecast, that should be in the neighborhood of 5,000% increase this year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, this is genocide. You said it in the very beginning. Look, one easy way to look at this is really simple. If you look at all of the documentation, Pfizer's documentation, we did mass spectrometry on their vials. We know what's in these things. And in fact, they even admit that they added an HIV protein into the shots for the purpose of disabling people's autoimmune, right? They couldn't slip these lipid nanoparticles, which are in fact little bombers that carry pathogenic proteins, to effectuate gene modification in the individual, gene therapy as they call it. In order to get those lipid nanoparticles past your cellular defense, your body's defense, they had to disarm your immune system. Yes. And they did that. It's in all the scientific papers. What they didn't do is undo that so effectively. And when you talk to our expert witness, they call it autoimmune deficiency syndrome. It's basically vaccine AIDS. And right now, they're coming to understand this. People are showing up HIV positive. People with 3 shots have no immune system left over whatsoever. There is no other way to characterize this other than intentional homicide, the unlawful taking of a human life, except that it's in large numbers, which makes it a genocide. So this is criminal, and we actually filed a criminal complaint. We created one in March of 2021. 20,000 of them were downloaded and filed all over the United States and the world, and until very recently, no law enforcement would take up the case or even investigate it. That's called a conspiracy. It's a very grand conspiracy.
Yes. A vaccine-delivered AIDS epidemic.
That's right. That's correct. In fact, what's really odd about that is now they're starting to open up the FEMA death camps, as I call them. They're quarantine centers under the intergovernmental agreements. And you will note, and I'll send you a copy of one, that the camps are not to discriminate for purposes of infectious disease, purposes of who gets quarantined and who doesn't. They're not allowed to discriminate against people that are AIDS positive, HIV positive, because that would be the entire population of people that got those shots, particularly the Pfizer or Moderna shots. We know that those are the HIV proteins that they put in there in order to disable the immune systems.
And the vaccinated people, not knowing, they don't know that their immune system has been turned off.
No.
Then they're now vulnerable to all kinds of viruses and germs.
That's right.
And they may die from something else, and nobody connects it to the vaccine.
That's exactly what's happening. And you know, to your point, people don't even know that they have been participating as laboratory animals in a phase 3 clinical trial. None of these shots.
Well, I think that's just about, tells you exactly what you need to know. If we can have the next slide. Obviously, Todd Cullen is a senior lawyer. You know, this guy's not made
correctly.
Yeah.
I want to hear.
The whole plan, right, is to get everybody vaccinated. Now, this is the most scary part. The World Economic Forum, right, are actually admitting in this that the next attack is going to be a cyber attack. And that cyber attack is going to attack interconnected parts of the 5G network, computer systems. What they're not stating in this is the people who've had these vaccines are part of this network, this interconnected digital network. And unfortunately, as it states in this video, it tells you, there's a large play it there now, it'll tell you in here what's really coming forward.
COVID-19 pandemic has shaken our economies and societies to the core and shown us how vulnerable we are to biological threats. In the digital world, similar risks are being overlooked right now. A cyber attack with COVID-like characteristics would spread faster and further than any biological virus. Its reproductive rate would be around 10 times greater than what we've experienced with the coronavirus. To give you an idea, one of the fastest worms in history, the 2003 Slammer sapphire worm, doubled in size approximately every 8.5 seconds, infecting over 75,000 devices in 10 minutes and almost 11 million devices in 24 hours. Fortunately, at least until now, cyber attacks have not impacted our health the way pandemics have, but the economic damages, and therefore the impact they have had on our daily lives, have been equal and sometimes even greater. You see, the only way to stop the exponential propagation of a COVID-like cyber threat is to fully disconnect the millions of vulnerable devices from one another and from the internet. All of this in a matter of days. A single day without the internet would cost our economies more than $50 billion, And that's before considering the economic and societal damages should these devices be linked to essential services such as transport or healthcare. As the digital realm increasingly merges with our physical world, the ripple effects of cyber attacks on our safety just keep on expanding at a faster pace than what we're preparing for. COVID-19 was known as an anticipated risk. So is the digital equivalent. Let's be better prepared for that one. The time is now.
Well, that's good of them, isn't it? So they're giving you full warning of what's actually coming. Yeah. So they're giving you full warning of, you know, the planned attack, right? Which is really nice of them. But you see, these characters have to tell you what's happening, so that it actually gives them more power. It gives them more power to think that the useless eaters will go off, get the vaccine, get connected to the grid, and they're telling you here that when the cyber attack comes, that technology is going to be attacked. Now, how they're going to attack you, they cause what's called a tonic seizure. They can hit you up with a number of frequencies or cancellation waves. So it's extremely crucial. Anybody who's had that vaccine and you get a neodymium magnet, we are going out in a minute. We've got magneteers going out. These are neodymium magnets. I carry them with me at all times, so we can actually test people in and around the injection site. So, you know, bare skin, and you make sure it's dry. They haven't got sticky skin or they're suffering pre-diabetes. If they have this magnet actually attaches to them, then what they must do, they must go and seek medical help. We must get it removed, but the most crucial thing is they have to be removed from the 5G network. Obviously, I like to talk about solutions, and the fact that the government are denying that these antennas are actually being injected into people. Unfortunately for the government, I've got the electron microscope images. Todd Calendar, they're secured, so they have secured vials of this poison, this technology, taken from military bases. So they've been totally secured. They've got the evidence, not the only one, Dr. Robert Young. There was some guys down in Spain, some other guys in South America, a couple of groups who've all received these vials. They've got no reason to tell lies. And what they say is these nanometamaterial antennas inside the vaccine. So it's absolutely crucial we'll get as many people as possible investigating this criminal behavior of the elite groups, because like I said, we're too early. We were always too early. We're too early with the 5G narrative when we're called Gateshead Council installing it in Gateshead. We're too early with that. I got that equipment removed. It was a simple letter before claim put to the council. They didn't have a leg to stand on. It cost them several million to remove every single transmitter from the streetlights. But we're probably living in one of the safest parts of the country now, apart from where there's the larger 5G infrastructure. I did a video the other day. There's some Orthodox Jew population living in Bensham area where they've put 5G directional weaponry on a hotel, and the levels of radiation they're being exposed to are absolutely catastrophic. And the rabbis in the area have noticed a significant drop in babies being born, because they take notice of these type of things where, you know, your local, you know, vicar or Catholic priest, he's not really concerned whether you have children or not. Well, unfortunately, the Orthodox Jew population are very, very interested in the fact that they, you know, the people under their watch actually do have a lot of children, and they make sure that that is the case. And if they're not, then obviously they like to find out what's going on. And unfortunately, in this case, we've shown them what's going on. These people are being polluted with electromagnetic radiation. The recent STOA report from Europe states clearly this type of radiation causes infertility, which is genocide. So major infertility problems in men and women, and therefore genocide. And that's why we're seeing massive depopulation, not that many children being born now, significant numbers dropping. And obviously, unfortunately, anybody who's had that vaccine, the nanometamaterials cause sterilization. So a lot of people are victims now. We have to make sure that they know they're victims and they want to do something about it, because we still have time to turn this round. That's why it's really important that everybody gets behind getting the information out so we can get as many people basically making a noise about the fact that they've been victimized through this whole terrorization of the population. I mean, Rishi Sunak is admitted in The Spectator that they were working to a script. He said it was a political decision. There were political decisions. They weren't following the science. What he said was it all changed when Ferguson came in. Ferguson, who is Imperial College London, SAGE Group, Psychological Warfare Group, that's who they are, all right? They're funded by foreign intelligence agencies and foreign powers, most certainly funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. These are terrorists. They terrorize the population under a false narrative to force them to get the vaccine, which is not a vaccine, but a technology that hooks them up to the 5G. And this is for the big cull. Once they get everybody vaccinated, and the problem that they have, there are millions upon millions, I think the number's clear, 19 million in the UK who haven't had it. They're going to have to come back with some other narrative to try and force that through. Otherwise, the World Economic Plan falls to pieces. So we'll have the next slide. It's
COVID-19
Is it there, guys? Raising awareness is absolutely key. So there's action keys. You know, it's no good, you know, terrorizing people and giving them misinformation, right? If you haven't got a way of actually being able to empower them to do something about it. I've always said political cover's a key. It's one of the reasons why they have serious problems with me. It also gives you the voice you can speak. You can't get arrested for speaking your political truth, but like religion. So it's always helpful and stops the police from trying to interfere because you're protected under international laws. Not that the police are very good at upholding the law. In fact, I think they're having difficulty spelling it currently. Offensive action. Currently, we have filing papers against directors in public health at local authorities because they're presiding over an 18% to 20% increase in all-cause mortality. They're responsible. The guidance they've been following, whether it's mask wearing, shutting down the economy, closing hospitals, people not getting appointments, it doesn't matter what it is that they're doing, they're the ones that are responsible for this increase in all-cause mortality. Obviously, we know it's the vaccine, we know it's the technology that they're the main factors are the vaccine and the 5G. However, it is an irrelevance. They have to investigate, and they're not doing that. So it's really important serving these directors for public health. We've got a number of documents there. I suggest everybody get involved. Share everything you can on social media. I know I've been blocked a lot. If anybody's got databases where they can explain this, if they've got family, friends, where they've dropped down dead, we're hearing a lot of. Today, in our local paper, we have now seen 6 deaths, 35 to 50-year-old people who shouldn't be dying, all, you know, unexpected, sudden. So you see all the words. It's really important that you make comment on them. Obviously, contact the police. Keep contacting the police. I know they're not doing anything. They ignored the Mark Sexton case. Absolutely deplorable. However, the evidence is there. We have the evidence. So lawyers, councillors, MPs, just keep on pushing them. We've got a document on Monday to ask MPs because unfortunately we now believe that MPs have some serious mental health issues and shouldn't be in position. So there's a simple questionnaire for them to answer. If they don't answer it correctly, then obviously we will know that they've got mental health problems. Or is it the fact that they're working to a script like Rishi Sunak, a script on behalf of the World Economic Forum, a terrorist organisation? Obviously, environmental crimes are being committed. The LEDs are biologically toxic. They're killing all the moths. Speak to people in parks. There's no small birds. All the small birds are decimated. All the moths are decimated. Everybody knows that. They can see it. It's even been spoken about in the mainstream media. Let's identify to people what's causing it. The LED lights are the main contributing factor. The law is absolutely being broken, and we're seeing massive amounts of misconduct in public office where characters are trying to cover up. So it's really important and understand the law. We have the right to make lawful arrests of people acting criminally in our locality, and especially to protect life where people are being assaulted. We've got these vaccine centres where people are still being injected, and they're talking about in September another large push for a booster shot. Now think about it. 1 shot, 2 shot, 3 shot, 4. Now they're coming for a booster shot on top of those 4. Now, scientifically, that is illiterate. If you do the same thing and expect a different result, then that's absolutely crazy. So we've got to ask the question, are these MPs, have they got mental health problems? Because a lot of them seem to think that 5G is safe without any evidence. They're just words. So the government tell you it's safe, like they said that the vaccine was safe and effective. It's obviously not effective because that's why they're in. The fifth one, it's obviously not safe because there's 1 million people injured just on the yellow card scheme in the UK and thousands dead. Safe in law means no risk. This is a very risky, very dangerous biological, well, it would have to be, it was developed in a BSL-4 weapons lab and not in a pharmaceutical lab at all. So I hope that, people take on board, do their own research. Like I said before, it's extremely important, but I think that's enough action keys, and it is a time for action. Sitting on the fence now and talking and not doing is not good enough, all right? We've got everything to go at. We've got absolutely nothing to lose.
Mark, thank you, Mark. Thank you very much for a really excellent presentation packed with information and reports, so people can read the factual information themselves. They can also go and check it. And I'm going to say to you that I really did find that a powerful presentation. In my mind, we've known for some time that the MHRA, the Medicines and Health Products Regulatory Agency, has simply not been paying any attention to the vaccine adverse reaction data they've been collecting. And this tells us that they're well aware of the damage that vaccines are causing in the first issue, in the booster and follow-ups. So they collect the data, their data shows that there's a problem and people are being damaged, some are dying, but they're simply ignoring it. Having seen that with the yellow card data, I can look at what you're talking about and understand that they are simply not interested in adverse effects of the 5G and the microwave radiation, because the intention is to harm people. So we are seeing that the policy is absolutely malevolent. It is to do damage to human beings. I'll just pass that back to you if you can still hear me.
Oh yeah, I can hear you, Brian. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this was, early on. I think I did the, the AV9 talk. The stuff I spoke about then, it was pretty unbelievable. I mean, you've got to remember, I came across a piece of hardware in a streetlight in Gateshead. It was a target acquisition weapon system. As we investigated, we found out that the strategic director was linked with businesses that were premises that were owned by the Chinese military in London. We knew that this, and I then presented all this information, the relevant information, to the correct authorities, military intelligence. I know Cobra had a conversation about this. I was actually informed of that from some senior military who were in Parliament, the interface between parliamentarians and the military in government, where I'd identified this attack on the country. I know it sounds absolutely unbelievable, but there we have it. The fact of the matter is there is a massive depopulation agenda going on as we speak. The whole fuel debacle, like I said, in 2008, oil was trading at $140 a barrel. It's now 93. From 2010 to 14, it was trading at 115 to 120. What we didn't hear was the bullshit narrative that we get today. You can't afford your gas, they're putting the price up. This is all a scam. It's all to destroy private business. It's all to fulfill the World Economic Forum. No private property, no private wealth by 2030. They are full in plan. That agenda is being pushed forward. The UK Health Security Agency actually uses the World Economic Forum circle, the rainbow circle that Bill Gates wears with pride, that Boris Johnson wears with pride. All of these criminals working for an international terrorist organization who are going to terrorize the population to acquiescence to take that vaccine they can then be target acquired and eliminated, as we saw with the 5G technology. They have their own IP address, and I can kill them. They can be killed at any time once they want to pull the trigger. And the only thing that's stopping it currently is there's 19 million people who haven't participated in that injection.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that, Mark. Now, just very quickly, because we're on time, about to run over, the three questions which the AV team are keen for the speakers to ask. And really for you, this is a summary for you. So the first one is, where do we find ourselves and how did we get here? How did we get in this mess?
The reason we got in this mess was allowing people who like to do as they're told into these positions of power. Okay, people who are self-serving, who are greedy, who are ignorant, and who really don't care about anybody. They only care about themselves, whether they're cult members, whether they're members of Common Purpose. I believe, I hear lots of things about different groups. I think one of the most dangerous groups to this country to date, Common Purpose, due to that interconnection with George Soros, all part of his cult, and his cult interconnection with the World Economic Forum, who are basically Satanists. We've got cult members right across the whole establishment, and that's how we got to where we are. And what happens, they promote themselves into these positions of power, and unfortunately they're attempting to depopulate. Simple.
Yeah. Okay, and then the second thing is, and really it's a very short little snap in a couple of sentences, what is actually going on? What are these people doing? I think you've already given us this, but I'm going to push it to you again.
Well, it's simple. Brian, their plan, obviously these people have some very, very distasteful hobbies with children. There's some of the very nasty things, you come across on the internet, something that people would find absolutely abhorrent. And this is all part of their lifestyle. And unfortunately, they want to keep that lifestyle going. There's an awful lot of people who would be sickened to the core if they realised the criminality and the deviousness of these type of people. So consequently, they're terrified of the general population. The only way that they can remedy that is by having a handle on them, by having something injected into them, which they can just switch them off at any time. You get in their way, they can just have you eliminated. And
right,
that's what this technology does.
Right, so this is about control and eliminating people who form a threat to you. Where does it ultimately head to?
Depopulation. They want to depopulate the world by, some 6 billion. I've got no doubt they're on track for that. Hopefully we can stop them before they get their full plan instituted. I'm pretty sure we can, because we are too early. We just need enough people to start going out there, testing people for these antennas. That's been very, very powerful for us over the last 3 or 4 months. We had to wait until the government admitted that there was a £120,000 payout for victims of this. We can show medical battery. We can also show the stress. And I'm going to tell you now, if anybody's had one of those antennas injected into them and they identify it with a near-dear magnet, I'd be pretty stressed, because you don't know if you're going to wake up the next morning. You don't know when they're going to target acquire you. That would stress you out, and that entitles you to a £120,000 claim for stress, medical battery. I suggest go to your doctors, test the magnet on the antenna site. If it attaches, get down to your doctors as soon as possible and ask them for removal. Those doctors, unfortunately, they went along with a scam. They have actually taken the vaccine most probably as well. They're not going to be happy when they know that they can be eliminated at any particular time when the cult feel it necessary.
Right. Okay, Mark, thank you very much indeed. Really excellent presentation. We need to leave it there. Thank you for joining us. Well, we're due for a break, so you've got until 5:30 for the latest break, and then we should be joined by Max Egan for another interesting presentation. So thank you all very much. It's been fascinating to hear the speakers so far, and I hope you'll still be with us at 5:30.